All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Imho.love show. I'm Angelwolf here with Mike Murburg and Kathy McGuire. Welcome, everybody. It's the 8th day of January. Is it 8th? Yep. Today the 8th, yeah. It's going by quick already.
And Merry Christmas to all you Orthodox Christians out there.
Oh, they celebrate now?
I think it began, it was the 7th.
Really? Catch all them sales.
But they celebrate for like 11 days.
Rock on. That's the way it should be done. Here we are, folks, in the Tan Talk Studios in sparkling downtown Clearwater. You can listen to the show on Tan Talk 1340, 1350, 1400 AM throughout the Tampa Bay area. We're also on 94.3 and 106.1 FM. And what's the other one, Vaughn?
104.3 FM, 102.3 FM, and then 106.1 FM.
So we got some FMs if you want to catch up to us. But TanTalk1340.com carries the show on YouTube Live, which will be coming in from that camera right there. And, of course, we're broadcasting on Facebook Live as we speak right now. My Lou Angelwolf homepage, inviting all 4,985 of my friends. So welcome aboard, everybody. But the main archive and the backbone of the show is Imho.love. That's a www.imho.love. .love is a suffix now, just like .com or .net. And all the shows are archived there. And they're also archived on Imho.love YouTube and BitChute. So, and we are getting ready to start broadcasting on Podbean. So there's all kinds of, if you want this information, it's available. We have a great show lined up for you tonight. We have special guests. Cielia Hatch is going to be calling in the next little bit. She is the author of the CE5 handbook. Those of you who have been following the CE5 information, CE5 or HICE, human-initiated contact experiences, she has done an exhaustive research on the CE5 protocols, how you can do the same things, how you could set up your groups. Absolutely chock full of information.
Yes, you too can dial up an ET today.
And yeah, it's some cosmic pizza or something. But then Mike has a nice piece that he wrote, real current event kind of a thing. The show started several years ago with Mike and I on Lutopia.com, and that was a show about health, humor, and well-being. And then as we got more and more involved in the CE5 movement, the HICE movement, it kind of, moved a lot of the other stuff out of the show, and this has become kind of like a global thing. We have listeners all over the planet, and we share with 70 different CE5 groups all across the world. And the initial thing that started that back in 2015 was a piece that I wrote called The Pacifist Riot. And it's available on Lutopia.com and, of course, on Imho.love.com. Imho.love, not .com. And as things are progressing, we're finding more and more information to share with you all about what we're trying to accomplish here. It seems like we never completely have completed our Mellow Festo. It just continues to add to itself. And what we're seeing now is here we are, January 8th, 2020, and there's skirmishes in the Middle East. And there's and Mike had a really good point of view. Do you want to read that for everybody, buddy, or you want?
Okay.
Okay.
My point of view.
It is a nice point of view, and we labeled, the show "Turn the Other Cheek" on the one side there, which is really, really important. But I'm gonna turn it over to Mike Murburg, and he's gonna read you this piece that he just created, and it'll be available on the Imho.love website.
Thank you, Lou.
Mm-hmm.
Johnny Cash once said, Johnny Cash once said, trust gets you killed, love gets you hurt, and being real gets you hated. I say, Who cares? Move on. From the greatest of mistakes may come the greatest of opportunities.
Mhm.
This week, the Iraqi Prime Minister said Qasem Soleimani was in Iraq to discuss de-escalating tensions between Iran and the Saudis when he was killed. And the Prime Minister claimed that Trump had asked for help in mediating the talks after the embassy attack. We murdered somebody and labeled him a terrorist. He may or may not have been, but he was not on our soil causing problems. He was on somebody else's. And he was on his own soil as well. And everybody has the right to defend their own soil. They say he had plans of imminently attack the United States. This is a new term of art. Imminent attack has new meaning. It doesn't have the meaning that we all understand what it is. It has a new meaning. It's not imminent at all. It's what somebody thinks that might happen someday. And that's as broad as it gets, folks. Without any further light, without any further facts, we're told this and asked to accept the government's version that never proves anything to us. They just say it's so. People get fed up with this murder, and it was and they've been fed that it was on account of the U.S. Embassy being attacked by Iraqi civilians a few days before. Once again, there's no evidence has been presented, and I would call this a bald-faced lie. I love my country, but I hate the government that lies to us continually about facts, about war, about the causes for war, about ET, about UFO, about UAP. It's all a big lie. And at this point, I think the world is getting fed up with it. We've seen that the emperor has no clothes, and we're saying something about it. The disinformation campaign has begun, and it's in full tilt. And yet, we sit here in a world situation where an eye for an eye is still asked for, and it eventually results in total blindness. A tooth for a tooth results in starvation. Fighting fire with fire results with more fire and a scorched earth. And how much more of this can we take? Someone has to be big enough to take the last step and say, okay, that's enough. Here's my other cheek. Do you want to take your best shot and see what happens? Or can we sit down and talk like two civilized human beings and come to a mutually beneficial situation? We have to learn from mistakes to forgive and to ask for forgiveness. Say, I'm sorry, I was wrong. We must not be afraid to speak of brotherly and sisterly love, to speak the truth, especially to power. We as individuals and Americans and as human beings have to set and be a better example. We must see through the warmongering and hatred. We must be the light we seek and give peace a chance. Thank you very much.
That's nice, man. And, it's happening on Facebook and all the social media sites. Everybody's got an opinion about what's going on over there. And the reality of it is you've really got to deflect it off of 3 different mirrors to get close to even whatever the truth is. I don't even think you'd know if it was, sizzling right in front of you on a plate, because this is all global banking. This is all military industrial complex stuff. This is our commander in chief taking his commands and making them happen, which is what happens. They don't, everybody talked about how this president did this and how that president did that. Ladies and gentlemen, every time you were looking at a good actor, they didn't sit in their office and twirl a pencil and think of all this stuff. They just reported what they were told to report. And it's the way it happens. It happened with both Bushes. It happened with Barack Obama. It's happening with this guy. They have higher bosses, but the way the media has introduced us to these people is that they are the last word. And it's really, it's kind of funny, I think, as I fan through the social media, how people just brutally attack any type of government official that doesn't necessarily settle in on their news network. The liberals attack the conservatives attack the liberals. and the moderates just stand there watching a ping pong game. So I don't know where this is going to end up. I don't think it's going to be as big as we think it is, or as it's being propagated to be. Probably to make it look like a big home run at the bottom of the ninth with 2 outs. So we're going to probably create another hero here. I don't know on which side, but on the Imho.love show, IMHO is, in my humble opinion, and Mike and I and Kathy, we try to sort through the news and try to get a little more organic take on everything that you're watching instead of what you're watching on the blinking light in your living room. Because all this stuff isn't as drastic as we say it is, as they say it is. And there's an agenda behind all these stories. And frankly, I'm just getting tired of them, man. Everything's got to spin. There's no black and white.
And God forbid you should disagree with somebody on Facebook because you'll end up being called everything from un-American to some rather pejorative terms. I won't repeat on the air. But, people don't realize that you can love your country and not love your government and not love the people that are in power, that are doing the things they do, that present, the guilty, that prevent the guilty from being prosecuted. They prevent their free flow of access to important information, and they outright lie to us. And there's no consequence for it. And I'm sick of it. I think we're all tired of it.
I think the most un-American thing we can do is not speak out.
I agree.
Yeah, sure.
So when someone says that to me, I say, it's exactly what I say to them. I said, I am being an American. I'm allowed to ask questions of my government.
That's why we can do this show.
They are elected officials. We have a thing called freedom of speech, and we have to protect it. It is wasting away, and it shows like this that allow us to have freedom of speech. We're not controlled by anyone else. We're not controlled by a corporate conglomerate. We have no agenda. The three of us may not even always agree on everything, but we talk about it, we listen to each other, and we learn from each other. And that's the most important thing we can be doing right now, is listening to each other.
Sure, that's exactly
openly.
Right. Yeah, and you might change your mind a little bit.
In my humble opinion.
There you go. That's how it goes.
And speaking of large multinational corporations, this show is being brought to you by New Angelwolf Enterprises and the law offices of Mike Murburg, PA, disabilityattorney.net, where we believe that justice is more than a system, it should be a end result. Now let's get to Cielia.
Okay.
That's right. Important stuff.
Is she on the line? Are we calling her? Is she calling us?
Why don't we give her a call? She's waiting for us.
Okay. Do you have the number, Vaughn? Okay. Very good. We'll go ahead and get her on here. The lady we're going to bring on here in just a little bit, her name is Cielia Hatch. And
Corrine Cornish.
And Corrine Cornish. And she's on the line. Well, welcome to the IMHO.love show, Cielia. And you have Corrine with you?
Yes, I do.
We
Hello
are here.
there, Mike and guest. So nice to be on the show. Thank you.
Anybody? Hello.
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 Oh, there you are.
That's
Hi.
better. All it took was a button. Thank you, Vaughn.
And welcome to the show. How are you?
Very well. Thanks for having us on the show. We're excited to be with you guys again.
Yeah, it's you all have been extraordinarily busy, and it is a pleasure and an honor to have you both on the show at the same time. And just in case we forget to thank you, the exhaustive work that you do for our CE5 community is it's top shelf. Thank you so much, and it helps us answer a lot of questions, to perhaps questions that were never asked before. And we thank you so much.
Oh, thanks so much,
Thank
Mike.
you.
Okay. All right. Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, see, Corrine, where do you want to start? I mean, for the people, give some background on yourself. See, last year you were involved with creating the CE5 Canada with the CE5 Contact Hub. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about what you're doing? That's why I like to, get guests on here that will tell us what they're doing in this community, so that they know things are evolving, who's been helping them evolve, where they come from, and where they're going.
Okay, so basically our group has been running for about 6 years.
Ooh,
and as we've been developing, we've been learning a lot, and we put together a handbook to help people answer some questions and just try and be as total as possible in terms of what questions could be asked. And one of the other things that we're doing is we're putting together a YouTube channel to try to reach maybe kind of the younger generation in a way that is more accessible to them.
Mm-hmm. That's great. I mean,
what's the name of the YouTube channel going to be?
It's called How to See a UFO.
Would you repeat that, please?
How to See a UFO.
How to See a UFO. Hey, let's take it to 101 there, right? Nice. And that's going to be on YouTube.
Yep, it is. It's just starting up. I got the audiobook of the handbook on there right now, and just getting over some jitters and putting my face directly on YouTube.
Well, you won't be able to go to the grocery store now.
Well, great. And I'll remind people that visit the YouTube channel and then like it, subscribe, and then pass it on, tell your friends.
Right. How to See a UFO on YouTube. That's great. I was looking at our notes here, and y'all were just down in New Zealand. Tell us about that adventure.
We were. Corrine and I went down to New Zealand, and what we learned in New Zealand was really impactful. We came back with a whole new paradigm of how to do contact. The way that our group has been doing contact, we understand and have learned over the years that contact, of course, starts from within,
mm-hmm.
and that it's really about expanding our consciousness. But I think that we put a real emphasis on sightings that I think in the beginning is really exciting, but I think evolves into a new thing. And we didn't really understand where that could go. But when we were in New Zealand, we really looked at what CE5 Aotearoa, which is Jeremy Cloak's and Doug Parker's CE5 group down there, and really learned quite a bit.
Did you notice any different style protocols or some that would cause you to make change in what you're currently doing, or did you see something that worked better or something that needed repair? What'd you find?
Well, it was interesting just because before we went down, and this was an intimate group of people, I believe we were about 18. And before we even got there, they got us involved in a CTS, which is a coherent thought sequencing, which really just means it's a coherent centered thought in a specific way that invites contact and shows our team's location. So they actually created a video for us all to watch. And it started at the location and then it expanded out from the location and up through New Zealand. And you could see then the sea and the ocean and really coming out into the Milky Way and beyond the universe and then back in. So before we even got there, they were really priming us to our CTS, which was really for us, even in Calgary here. This was something that was brand new to us, but really exciting because already, even we were from all over the place, Australia, Canada, United States, New Zealand, and where?
Japan.
And Japan, that's right. And so
wow.
We not only with the CTS starting initially, that started the group coherence, and that's something too, that not only starting at CTS, then what we were already, once we got there, we had already tuned in vibrationally, energetically to our location and the group, because before we arrived, they asked us to just note what was going on with our CTS personally. We were asked to do it about once a day. And even through people's dreams, people started to get thoughts and feelings and images and sensations. So that started us off. So really what was impressionable to me was that the group coherence is really, really important and really crucial in creating that unity, in fact. And so once we got into our groups, that was really a really central focus of us, is the heart opening, which came through many meditations and going into not only ourselves, the group, the Earth's field, and expanding that out, and then bringing that back in. And that was we did that daily. So over 5 days, we became quite coherent, not only personally within our groups. And so this as I was there personally, it really helped me to refocus my understanding of what we were doing in Calgary here. We were really focused on the sky and what was going on and what was appearing, and very fun, yes, and interesting. However, one of the realizations that I had is that there was an incredible refocus that was offered to us in New Zealand, in that not only is the focus above, it's on the ground, it's in the trees, it's in the bushes, it's in the field, and not only the field in terms of the ground field, but the space of energy, the what was being created. So, and we recently connected with Doug Parker, who is one of the leaders in this group, and we were talking about sightings. He said, and this is a quote, "Nowadays, I'm exploring any way of communication that they agree to. So far, there's a strong preference to see me/us to engage in coherent activity, especially when it's involving energy flows." So,
wow.
One of the really beautiful aspects about New Zealand is that their forests, their bushes, their trees, they have no natural predators. Whereas for us here in Canada, very different. We're facing cougars or the like. So we don't have that privilege to really sit in the middle of a forest and just really tune into an energy field. And that's one of the things that we were able to do in New Zealand. So one of the things that we experience, and that what they experience and what they call are OTs. And OTs are other terrestrials, or they call them nature spirits or nature beings. So time was allowed for us to go into the forests and the bushes and explore what that is, and what happens when not only we're coming from an individual group resonance, then to go out into the wildlife and then be very welcoming, and really a really CE5 welcoming type of demeanor. And one of my personal experiences when I was in the forest, they talk about is completely black. And they talk about a scintillating energy. And when moving my fingers, I could see the energy coming off of my fingers into the air. And I also heard in my mind, I would say, and it sounded like outside, but sounds of cicada/crickets. Now, the South Island is the colder island. I did hear the cicadas in the Northern Island because it was warmer. And so not only did I feel the scintillating energy and these sounds, I went back to the group and I said, this is my experience. Like, what was happening to me? And one of the leaders, Margot, she said, "Oh, you heard cicada sound. What's happening is that you're actually beginning to receive the sensations of the OT's field that is starting to form around you." And also seeing the scintillating energy that's coming off your fingers. So that was one of my experiences. And they taught us a CE5 protocol for approaching these OTs. And from their experience, these OTs are about 3 feet high. They're white in color and skin. And that's where they appear to us if they feel it's safe enough, if they feel that they would like to communicate. And there's a whole communication process around that. So we really learned to reshift our focus. And at many times during our breaks, during our groups, we would just take a walk. And that was commonplace. By the end, we'd all take a walk and we would all feel the energy, feel the air, feel the space, and with that energetic resonance, just see what appears. And there have been many very, very interesting stories of even what happens on break time on the ground. So wow. There were times when we had cloudy skies and we had lights streaming across the field or streaming across the sky like paintbrushes. And it really offered me, and I feel us, the experience that the focus of CE5 was just from my experience, a little bit narrow and maybe a little bit myopic until really New Zealand opened me up to it's everywhere. I mean, everything is energy is everywhere, and with that coherent field and thought, it can happen in any form and anywhere.
Wow, that's what a beautiful explanation, and it completely makes sense, because part of the CE5 experience or HICE experience is the people involved and the environment that they're in. We do monthly. We do CE5 out at Darby Ranch. Area 52, we nicknamed it, and because it's off of State Road 52, and it's the people. And I try, if I have the wherewithal, I try to start focusing in on a couple days early on a CE5 and start imagining and putting energy into the area and the other people that are coming, even though, it's just, you just have to figure whoever's going to be there is going to be there, and the energy is going to be as such. But this is a beautiful focus that you all have found, and these OTs are fascinating. It's the first time I've ever heard that term, and the first time I've ever heard them described.
They're ET's favorite cousins. I'll interject here. Years ago when I first started doing this, I found very effective. And for those of you who may be listening that don't have the access to CTS video, Google Earth worked pretty well. And if you pan on into where you are and pan on out and pan on in, that gives you a pretty good mental picture of where you are, so that you can project that for what that's worth. And then after you get out of the solar system, it's pretty much anybody's guess what you're CTSing, but it's not really necessary, because you're sending it out past where your imagination reaches, and somehow that beam of light manages to attract ET, and they find a way in. And lastly, I'll say that this conversation we're having tonight is very synchronistic with where we were. Our last show last week, after a very rainy and overcast and cloudy and very uncomfortable CE5 experience, Lou and I decided to do a show on what happens when they don't show. And what you're saying about the ground visibility and the spirits on the ground is very appropriate. I mean, I've seen them out at the ranch, and I've seen them especially out in Shasta when everybody else is looking up in the sky. And we've even seen the motherships on the horizon when everybody else is kind of looking at each other in the circle, which has a tendency to happen with some people if they're not using their gravity chairs and they're just sitting in regular camp chairs. So, with that, I'll shut up. But what I will do is ask you about, now you've been using some additional equipment out there. Yeah, we're coming to the top of the hour. So why don't you brief us a little bit on the equipment? Then we got to take a break, and then we can come back, and we got a half an hour with you if that's okay with you.
Yeah, absolutely. That is one of another whole realm of expansion that we were exposed to in New Zealand, for sure. And they, Jeremy and specifically Doug, they use equipment to communicate directly with their ETs and OTs, and it not only in their homes but in the field. And the devices that they use tri-field meters, they use radios like a ham radio, radar detectors, and not only will they ask questions verbally, but even in their minds, they'll receive information, they get guidance. And I know even last year in New Zealand, we would be location scouting for that evening, and Jeremy would have his radios and with him, and as we were driving, we would hear the radio really come in and do the different types of communication, and once that radio went off, then that was to be the location for that evening, and we found some very, very interesting locations just by connecting into their radios. Wow. And so while doing that as well. And with all of these different types of technologies that we had, we also used Dr. Greer's CE5 app with the crop circle tones. And
we've got to go to break right now, but just hold that, and we'd be honored if you would stick around. We gotta cut out for about 6 minutes. They got to play the regular news and some ads, but we'll be back in about 6 minutes. Can you ladies hang on?
We'll be here.
All right, super duty. We're having a fantastic show. Cielia Hatch and Corrine will be back in.
Super duty, by the way, is a truck.
I know. That's my little phrase. But we got a break for the regular news. We'll be back in 6 minutes. Thanks for listening to the Imho.love show.
WTAN Clearwater,
FM 106.1,
WDCF Dade City,
FM 102.3,
WZHR Zephyr Hills,
FM 104.3.
Listen.
Facilities in Iraq.
The president wants to put new sanctions on Iran, which is already suffering from severe financial restrictions imposed by many nations. But in his address, Mr. Trump offered this olive branch akin to how he's tried to win over North Korea's Kim Jong-un.
To the people and leaders of Iran, we want you to have a future, and a great future, one that you deserve, one of prosperity at home and harmony.
Bob Costantini, Washington.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is vowing his government will get answers after a Ukrainian passenger jet crashed, killing at least 63 Canadians just minutes after taking off from Iran's capital.
In the coming days and weeks, our government will continue to work closely with its partners to ensure that this crash is thoroughly investigated. Canadians have questions, and they deserve answers.
No data was stolen or corrupted in a cyber attack this week on the City of Las Vegas computer system, but a city spokesman said it does not know who is responsible for the Tuesday morning attack. I'm Barbara Cusack.
And now, a page from the Diary of Flo.
Dear Diary, there's something about protecting people's homes through Progressive that inspires me, because I just had an idea for a book. Well, it was originally an idea for a movie based on a play inspired by a podcast, but the idea is how you can save when you bundle home and auto. Might not be the best idea for a book.
Save an average of 17% on car insurance when you bundle home and auto through Progressive.
Maybe a radio commercial? Guess we'll never know.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Discounts not available in all states or situations.
Message and data rates may apply. What if there were a top-ranked business degree that gave you access to world-renowned faculty, leaders, and mentors, but on your schedule? The W.P. Carey School of Business at Arizona State University is now accepting high-quality applicants for its MBA and Business Analytics Master's degree programs offered 100% online. Learn more about the top-ranked W.P. Carey business degrees online. Text RANK to 79645. Again, that's RANK to 79645.
Hello, this is Prior Smith speaking from Toronto, with an invitation to all vacationing Canadians to join me at 9 a.m. and 12 noon each day, Monday through Friday, for Canada Calling, the news from home, in Clearwater on WTAN AM 1340 and 106.1, in Dade City on AM 1350 and 102.3, and in Zephyr Hills on WZHR AM 1400 and 104.3. That's Canada Calling, back for another winter season on the 10 Talk Radio Network.
Are you looking for some great restaurants? For some great wines? Where are the great chefs? Listen to Dine Out Radio, heard every Wednesday on the 10 Talk Radio Network. 12 to 1 p.m., we'll tell you where all the great events are. We'll have Food and Wine Magazine and Bon Appetit Magazine. We'll have their editors and writers on each month. And maybe we'll throw in a couple surprises. Check out the website, diningoutradio.com.
My bridges all.
If you would like to become a wholesale buyer of the premium quality longevity product that you hear about right here on the Tan Talk Radio Network, for personal service, you can pick up the phone right now and call Lola at 727-441-3311. Again, that's Lola at 727-441-3311. Or for even faster service, log on to tantalkhealth.com. That's tantalkhealth.com. Here's to your health and longevity.
Go yard is a metaphor used in baseball, meaning to hit a home run. Life struggles can make you feel like you just struck out. It's times like these that we need a little batting practice to pick ourselves back up and get back in the game. Whether you are dealing with marital issues, drug addiction, rebellious teens, anxiety, depression, or just generally having a bad day, call Mama Mac. If life has you down 0-2, Before you strike out, learn to go yard. Go yard with Mama Mac on this radio station, Thursdays, 6 o'clock.
Are you looking for a job? Join me, Gene Hodge, on the Employment Opportunity Hour, Thursdays from 7 to 8 p.m., where I will tell you and share with you, as well as answer all of your questions and help you find enjoyable employment instead of a job. This is the only talk show that talks about everyone who makes up our workforce. Join me on the Employment Opportunity Hour every Thursday from 7 to 8 p.m. on the Employment Opportunity Hour.
Hi, this is John Austin, host of the Tan Talk Radio Network's Book Club, inviting you to join us every Tuesday at noon to hear talented new national and international authors discuss their books. The program features both fiction and nonfiction titles and is sure to add terrific new books for your must-read list. If you love books, be sure to listen every Tuesday at noon for the Book Club right here on the Tan Talk Radio Network.
Don't turn it off now. You need this stuff. Tampa Bay's Tan Talk Radio Network.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the IMHO.love show. I'm Lou Angelwolf, and here we are with Mike Murburg and Kathy McGuire. We have special guests on the line, intriguing first half hour, Cielia Hatch and Corrine. What's Corrine for the?
Cornish.
Cornish. Sorry about that. And we've been discussing the CE5s. They recently had a adventure out to New Zealand and a whole new attitude about prepping themselves to go into a particular area, to prepare themselves in spirit and receiving energies, so they could go and have a successful outreach to our star family, our Skywatch. But you guys are fantastic, and I know Cielia, you wrote the book, the CE5 Handbook, which is intriguing and a huge piece of work, and we thank you so much. We have a lot of people listening tonight, but maybe can you kind of give us just like say you want to set up a CE5 group? What's your 101? What's the basis of agreement amongst the groups? What do you try to accomplish early on?
Well, I guess just finding your people first of all, and then maybe agreeing on intentions. Certainly, if you have a group with very diverse groupings or diverse people that are wanting different things, sometimes it can be a little incoherent. And I think that might have been part of our issue in the beginning. We didn't have sightings for 3 years.
Wow.
And yeah, we just kept going.
That's diligence, boy, I tell you.
Hey, can we jump in on, you had mentioned Greer's crop circle tones. What's going on with that? That's new to me, and I'd like to hear about that.
Oh yeah, so that's one of the apps that he has put out a number of years ago. Actually, there might even be an update on it, but within that there is within that app there are crop circle tones and a Fibonacci sequence tone that we actually play to not only tune the instruments, but really just to tune us into the coherence of the group.
Wow, that's an app you can get for your phone?
It is.
Wow. Boy, we are
it's
we're pretty organic out there at the ranch.
Little bell that I use.
What is the app called again?
Front desk,
It's called ET Contact Tool.
ET Contact Tool.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, there's going to be a new release, I think, sometime this year, maybe even in conjunction with the release of the documentary.
There's a meditation in the app. There's a CTS in the app, and there are the tones in the app. So, it's definitely, and Celia was just about to launch into a group, but it's definitely something that when starting a group, it's definitely helpful for sure.
Absolutely. That's a perfect example, actually, of what you could use if you were starting a group, because everything is in there. And that is actually what we used when we were first going out. We would take the ET Contact tool out on our phones. We would have a little external speaker so everybody could hear. And we would play Dr. Greer meditation, and we would play the crop circle tones at the beginning. And if we had time, and then we'd play another Dr. Greer meditation. So everything is in there, and instructions and everything. It's just a very handy little app.
Well, that's really interesting. Now, reading my notes here, you were talking about, and this is something that I think every CE5 group is going to encounter, is there are people that want different things out of this. There are people, forgive my casualness about it, but there's people, hey, we want to go out and look for UFOs. And there's other people that really have this down to a boxed science, and they really are looking for true hard facts, looking for real stuff. And because you really don't know what everybody's thinking when they're signing up, you get both. And now that, to me, that can throw off the congruency of spirit, the congruency of frequency as we're reaching out. Is there a way to tame that, or to kind of neutralize that, or bring it all towards the middle? Have you noticed anything like that?
Well, actually, I do have a little bit of a story that goes with that, and I'm not sure if it really applies to those two categories that you've got, but just in terms of creating unity within a group. When I was doing I was at a CE5 with a pretty large group of people, about 40, and there's a bit of an argument that came up in the middle of the CE5, and it got quite intense, actually. We had the group of people that were very serious and wanted to meditate. And then there was the group that were more social and wanted to engage in some of the fun and that, like, increasing your vibrational frequency kind of stuff that happens when you're with friends and having fun.
Sure.
So there was a bit of a complaint that was going on very vocally, and got a bit out of hand. So we had to rein it in, and we had to really remind each other that we are meeting each other's needs and that we need to cooperate and collaborate. And when we said that, I was talking to the group, and when I said that we do need to find a balance between the people that are more serious and the people that are a little more social, 2 flashbulbs went off above us. So I thought that was a good confirmation of how we do need to come together in our similarities.
You mentioned creating unity within the group. The best night we ever had at the ranch back in November of 2018, that Ken Glanister was got on his and posted on his YouTube channel, was preceded by, we had 10 or 11 people come up. I needed some help cleaning the brush and the limbs that had come down from the couple of hurricanes that we had that year that swept through there. So we were out, there were 10, 11, 12 of us with loppers, with cutters, with shears, with push lawnmowers, all kinds of things. And that group worked together. And then when we took our first break at about 1 o'clock at lunchtime, we had a craft show up overhead, broad daylight, as if to say, wow, nice job. You're here. And then that night we had 20, 25 people come in, and the night was phenomenal. We must have seen, if you count all the dots of light that came in with that gigantic armada that came over us, there were 1,000 craft up there at one time. And I had before and after, I've never felt such great unity by a group working together to accomplish and just lay down all the barriers and then just get to an accomplished end that furthered the circumstance that made the place more ready for people to make contact and for ETs to make contact with us. It was incredible, and you were so on point with that.
Wow, that's a really beautiful story, and it really highlights what I think there's a bit of a feedback loop of gentle encouragement from the ETs to help us move in a more harmonious direction. Something that happened that same night with the little argument that happened, and then our encouragement to ourselves to find unity, was we decided to do a meditation. And looping back to our conversation earlier about deeper contact or moving beyond introductions to ETs and actually doing something with ETs, we decided to do energy form meditation that we learned in New Zealand. And after we did that together, and we did it for the Earth, so I really felt like we were not just saying hi back and forth to the ETs up in the sky with sightings, but that we were actually buckling down and doing something for the planet. We had an incredible showing of 70 of some of the brightest flash bulbs that I've ever seen.
Wow. Well, what we're reiterating here, the thread through this whole show so far has been the collective oneness of everything. When you do your mental prep and your coherent thought sequences, and like when Mike was prepping the field, there's an energy that starts growing with the people that are involved in the anticipation, and I think it's the purity of the intent that you really do. One of my favorite things about any CE5 or HICE event is the fact that you do get to meditate deeply and be one with the earth and make yourself make your frequency as gentle and approachable as possible. And when there's several people with that same mindset, that they did work all day out in the field, they did do these things, it almost seems like an attitude of gratitude, and that's what the people are feeling amongst themselves. And then perhaps our extraterrestrial friends can feel that cohesiveness amongst us, and therefore be more prone to communicate with us.
I found it more a gift of love than anything else.
Wow.
Some people showing up and, bearing brambles and all kinds of boo-boos in their hand and stuff. I mean, there was nothing short of a great outpouring of love. I still think that's the basis of contact, no matter how you try to derivate it or move it elsewhere. But we had a question from one of our listeners who asked, are these OTs the same things as elementals? And I don't know what an elemental is, so I'm about to learn something one way or another.
Yeah, that's a great question. Often people will classify elementals as the fairies or the gnomes, and I feel it's maybe classified differently in different areas of the world, and so their OTs, they call them earth beings. They might be a little bit different, I feel, than the elementals that we're familiar with, more so just in what sort of shows up in our North American, maybe even folklore or reality. And it really, what is folklore is most likely our past and current reality. So, yeah.
And we do know people that have seen OTs. So they would describe them as basically, like you said, about 3 foot tall, but looking very much like, say, a gray, bald, sort of just, I don't know, being-y. I have a neighbor who lives down the street who's a native shaman, and she described her experience where an OT came out of the jungle. I had thought for a long time that she had been talking about an ET being, because that's everything that's on my mind all the time. But and she just never explained it clearly to me until the other day when she was like, "Oh yeah, that was an Earth being," and I was like, "Oh," because her description sounded exactly like what I would expect an ET to look like.
Wow. That's again, that's going to display the unity of all things. So if your OTs are okay with human beings who are reaching out to ETs, that would let me know that frequency is similar and broad enough to encompass that level of seeking. So we go into these events really kind of in a blind faith that we have presented ourselves as vulnerable enough yet strong enough to make ourselves known. And then when we get communication, that validates both of those things. So I really love this coherent thought sequence thing that you do. So that is that's something that we should try to introduce several days before any event, so that everybody kind of gets on the same page and has a bit of a running start, if you would.
It's in the protocol.
All right.
Just got to read the protocol.
Right.
That's the problem. When people come to your group and they're not on the same page with your protocol, they haven't done this before. I think it's really important to establish group protocols. I've done them with and without the protocols, and it all depends on who your group is. Your more advanced people, they really know how to get to the bottom of the business. And certain parts of protocols can be circumvented. But if you're doing your homework for your CE5s, you're going to be meditating. You're going to be doing all the stuff that's recommended, the kind of things we're talking about here. If you really do want to make contact, you're going to do that because somehow it just seems to work. What do you think about that?
Well, you know what? Actually, I think that definitely works. And I also noticed that there's a lot of different styles between groups all over the world. So some of us might be more kind of like organized or just wanting to do things in a certain way. And some groups have no protocols and just go out and they just have a real high frequency and want to get into that communication and do. So, and that's something that I was going to interrupt you earlier when you were talking about the handbook that we wrote and you called it the CE5 handbook. The reason why I wanted to name it a CE5 handbook is because it really is just a form of communication. Like it's just one grouping of protocols.
Okay. I understand that. And I apologize for the mistitling there.
No,
he still calls YouTube the YouTube. So what do you expect?
I'm a little dusty.
And the Facebook.
What about the idea of CE5 being a portal? Do you think that's a viable way to look at this?
Yeah, the way that we all come to our greater selves, I think, is so varied all over the world, right? And I think that CE5 is just a really fun way to get into either whether it's, deep spirituality or just better understanding of ourselves and who we are and our relationship to the earth. But I think something that's happened for us, or maybe me particularly, is CE5 has really opened me up to the idea of finding guidance for myself. And one of the things that we're doing is we started a channeling group, a channeling circle. So we're trying to develop our abilities as channels, not only to communicate with ETs more directly and more intimately, but also to access our own higher wisdom and all that kind of jazz.
What do you do in a channeling circle?
Well, we're taking the textbook from Sanea Roman's Opening to Channeling coursework, and we're going through it. We're also just adding in different things. Like Corrine the other week did a little lecture on automatic writing, and we practiced that. We're all just basically trying to find how is it that we are going to access, whether or not you want to call it like the hive mind or source or our higher selves or our higher wisdom, but to be able to connect to that more consistently and more clearly so that we can, I guess, live lives and grow in the way that we want to the most.
Talking about the hub state of mind or the hive state of mind, why don't you tell us about your work that you've done with creating the CE5 hub? Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, we wanted to put together a one-stop resource for all things related to human-initiated contact. It's not just about ETs and UFOs. Sometimes we get submissions from people that are like, oh, this documentary about UFOs is great. But no, it's really just about contact initiated by humans.
So how would we find that? How would we find that if we're looking for this and we've heard it for the first time?
So you would go to www.etcontacthub.com and you can go look basically by medium. So if you like YouTube, then go to the YouTube channels. If you like podcasts, go to the podcast radio show. If you like radio shows, go to the radio show podcast page. But yeah, it's all there by Medium, and you can check it out. There's also protocols. So, Mike, your protocols are up there.
Thanks. Very nice. We have a real special event coming up on Monday, January 13th, and that's the Fire the Grid 2. Can you explain to our audience what that is? That's some really interesting stuff.
For sure. Do you guys remember that at all? Were you a part of it, and did you meditate at that time? Any of those 3 times in 2007, 9, and 11?
I did not.
Okay. Well, basically, the story all revolves a woman named Shelley Yates. She's a Canadian. She lives in Halifax. And back about 18 years ago, I believe, she had a near-death experience where she drowned, as well as her 4-year-old son. And when she was on the other side, some what she calls multi-dimensional extraterrestrial light beings gave her instructions on how to save her son's life. So while she's in the hospital, she recalls all of these instructions. They come flooding back to her as she's there at the Children's Hospital. Her son is in a coma. The doctors say he's always going to be a vegetable, and that's it. We should unplug him. And the instruction she got was she saw a big bucket in front of her, and it had a little glob of silvery glue at the bottom of the bucket. And the instructions that she heard were fill it up. So basically, she had to do an energy transfer for her son and give him healing energy. So she took her little black book, and she called everybody in her little black book, including guys she only went on dates with once, and said, you come to the hospital and bring anybody you know that wants to help, but we're going to do an energy transfer for my son. And the healing was miraculous. There were 8 neuroscientists that came to the hospital trying to pore over the records and figure out what they did to make this miracle happen. And they had no interest in what Shelley had done. Anyways, later on, her son is doing very well, just fine, incredibly better than what the doctors ever predicted for him. And the beings would continue to talk to her, and they said, what you did for your dying son, you can do for a dying planet. Oh. So they gave her instructions to hold mass meditations. And because her story is so engaging, and she is just an amazing storyteller, she was able to resonate with millions of people. They had 750,000 people a day going to the website, 40 million full reads for the first 3 months that the website was up after she had her interview with Coast to Coast with George Nuri.
Wow.
So it really went viral. And so she did that 3 times, 2007, 9, and 11. And now she got a message that there are 3 more dates that we could come together. And in group meditations, we can basically raise the field. So do I have time to go into a little bit about what the grid is?
Sure. You got about 3 minutes.
Okay, I'll talk fast. So the grid basically is a grid of hexagons, and each human has their own hexagon. You have 1 photon of light inside of what is basically like a glass frosted tube. And when you are vibrating low, so when you're sad or feeling guilty or resentful or angry, your little photon goes wub, wub, wub around this hexagon. But when you're feeling joy, bliss, excitement, your hexagon is spinning with light, and it's going wing, 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 wing. And when you are at that high frequency, you can flood the grid. You can flood 1,000 hexagons with your energy.
Okay.
So that's the key to living in high frequency, and doing one of the best things that you can do for the planet and for each other is to live in high frequency, live in joy and thankfulness.
Wow.
And so this is what this meditation is about, just as it was with Fire the Grid. This one's called Flood the Junctures. So we've already fired the grid, we've activated it. And now this time we are just flooding the junctures, flooding the grid with pure positive light energy to heal and uplift.
Wow. That is amazing. And now this is a time that was prescribed. So we had 2001, 2007, 2011, and now 2020 comes around. And
yep.
This is the time for the cycle. We talk about everything being cyclical very often here on Imho.love. Again, another wonderful and incredible cycle coming around. ladies, thank you so much for your time. We are about out of time here on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure and an honor to have you on, and we'd love to have you back.
Thank you so much. And just a quick note, that meditation's on Monday. It's coming up quick. So you can go to firethegrid2.org to find out more about it.
Firethegrid2.org. Okay, very good. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much, Cielia and Corrine. Thank you so much for joining us. Mike, have a great week. It was really excellent.
Thank you, Lou. Yeah, thanks for coming, everybody.
Yeah. Kathy, you have a good week as well. Vaughn. The Imho.love show, we're here every Wednesday night, 7:30 to 8:30. And it's about all kinds of interesting stuff. And we really appreciate you coming and tuning in. And just remember what we say here every week. Use your head, but trust your gut. Have a great week.
Peace, y'all.
Ciao.
Somehow I must explain. I'm on a rock, I'm gonna get by your steps until I get through to you. I've got to change on you, baby. You come back to me. That's what I'm gonna do. Till you come back.